Maya Chen arrived at the CBS studio 2 hours before her scheduled interview with Sundar Pichai. She had been reporting on technology for 15 years, and interviews like this had become routine for her. As one of the most respected voices in tech journalism, Maya had earned a reputation for asking tough questions that often made executives uncomfortable. Today would be no different. Coffee? Her producer, Jake, asked as he handed her a steaming cup. Thanks, Maya said, accepting it while scanning her notes one more time. I got him on the new AI project. Everyone says it's impossible. Jake nodded. Be aggressive on that point. Our viewers want to see him squirm a little. Maya smiled. She had interviewed dozens of tech CEOs over the years, and most of them crumbled under pressure when questioned about their more ambitious claims. In her experience, there was always a gap between what companies promised and what they could actually deliver. The studio buzzed with activity as technicians adjusted lights and tested microphones. Maya settled into her chair and watched as makeup artists touched up her face. The red light on the camera would turn on in exactly 45 minutes, and millions of people would tune in to watch her interview with one of the most powerful men in technology. Pichai is here, Jake announced, pointing to the studio entrance. Maya watched as Sundar Pichai walked in. He wore a simple gray suit with no tie and carried only his phone. Unlike many executives who arrived with an entourage of assistants, Pichai came with just one person, a young woman who appeared to be handling his schedule. Mr. Pichai, welcome, Maya said, extending her hand. Please call me Sundar, he replied with a warm smile. His voice was soft but confident. As they exchanged small talk before the interview, Maya noted how different Pichai seemed from other tech leaders she had met. There was a calmness about him, a lack of the nervous energy that often surrounded people in his position. We'll be focusing on your new AI project today, Maya said, testing his reaction. Many of your competitors say it's technically impossible. Pichai nodded. I look forward to discussing it. No defensiveness, no immediate attempt to prove her wrong. This surprised Maya. Usually, executives jumped at the chance to defend their projects before the cameras even started rolling. 10 minutes before airtime, Maya and Pichai took their places in the studio. The lights brightened, making the room uncomfortably warm. Technicians made final adjustments to their microphones. Going live in 5, 4, 3. The floor director counted down silently with his fingers for the final numbers. The red light turned on, and Maya faced the camera with her practiced smile. Good evening and welcome to Tech Today. I'm Maya Chen, and joining me is Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google. Thank you for being here, Mr. Pichai. Thank you for having me, Maya. Google recently announced Project Nexus, an AI system that you claim can understand and respond to human emotions through standard smartphone cameras. Many experts are calling this science fiction rather than science. What do you say to that? Maya watched Pichai carefully, expecting to see a flicker of discomfort. Instead, he seemed completely at ease. Innovation often sounds like science fiction until it becomes reality, Pichai said. What we're doing with Project Nexus builds on years of research in computer vision and emotional intelligence. It's ambitious, certainly, but we wouldn't announce it if we weren't confident in the technology. Maya couldn't help but notice the certainty in his voice. Either he was an exceptional actor, or he genuinely believed in what his company had created. Either way, she was determined to push harder. The real challenge was about to begin. Maya leaned forward in her chair, ready to challenge Pichai's claims about Project Nexus. The studio lights felt even hotter now as she prepared to ask her next question. Mr. Pichai, you say this technology can detect human emotions through a standard smartphone camera. But researchers at MIT and Stanford have published papers stating that accurate emotion detection is at least 5 years away. How do you explain this gap? Pichai nodded, seeming to appreciate the question rather than fear it. Those research papers are excellent work, and I've read them myself. The difference is that our approach combines visual detection with contextual language processing in a way that hasn't been tried before. Maya couldn't hide her skepticism. She had heard similar claims from other tech executives over the years, and they rarely delivered on such bold promises. Can you explain that in simpler terms for our viewers? She asked. Of course. Imagine if you could not only see someone's face but also understand what they just said and what happened moments before. That's what our AI does. It doesn't just look at a smile, it understands why the person might be smiling. As Pichai continued explaining the technology, he mentioned that Project Nexus could detect emotional states with 97% accuracy, even in poor lighting conditions or when the person was partially facing away from the camera. That was when it happened. Maya let out a short, unmistakable laugh. It wasn't planned, just a natural reaction to what sounded like an impossible claim. The laugh echoed slightly in the quiet studio. "I'm sorry, Mr. Pichai," she said, trying to recover, but 97% accuracy. Even human psychologists can't read emotions that well. The studio fell silent. The camera operator glanced at the producer, unsure if they should cut away. But Pichai's expression remained unchanged. If anything, he seemed more interested in the conversation now. "You're right to question this," he said calmly. "It does sound unbelievable. That's why I'd like to show you instead of just telling you about it." Maya hadn't expected this. Executives typically came prepared with slides or pre-recorded demonstrations, not offers to prove their claims on the spot. "You want to demonstrate it right now? On live television?" she asked, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. "Yes, if that's okay with you. Could I borrow your phone for a moment?" Maya hesitated. This wasn't part of the plan. She looked at Jake off camera, who gave a subtle nod. This unexpected turn would make for great television, regardless of the outcome. "Sure," she said, unlocking her iPhone and handing it to Pichai. "But I should warn our viewers that this wasn't planned." Pichai smiled as he took her phone. "That's exactly why this demonstration will be valuable. May I download the Nexus app to your phone?" "Go ahead," Maya replied, confident that even if the app worked, it couldn't possibly live up to his claims. The camera zoomed in as Pichai quickly downloaded an app that wasn't yet available to the public. The tension in the studio grew. Technical staff moved quietly into position to ensure every moment was captured clearly. "While that's installing," Pichai explained, "I should mention that this is still a beta version. The app doesn't need any special hardware, just a standard smartphone camera." Maya watched with growing curiosity. Most tech demos were carefully prepared to hide flaws. This spontaneous demonstration would either be a spectacular failure or something truly remarkable. As the app finished installing, Maya noticed Pichai seemed completely relaxed. Either he was bluffing brilliantly, or he genuinely believed his technology would work as promised. "Ready?" he asked. Maya nodded, still expecting disappointment but now genuinely curious about what would happen next. She didn't realize it yet, but this moment was about to change the course of her career. The studio grew quiet as Pichai opened the newly installed Nexus app on Maya's phone. The tension was palpable. Camera operators zoomed in to capture every detail while the production team watched intently from behind the scenes. "The app needs about 10 seconds to calibrate to the environment," Pichai explained, holding the phone steady. "It's analyzing the studio lighting conditions." Maya crossed her arms, still skeptical but increasingly curious. "And this works without any special hardware modifications to my standard phone?" "Completely standard," Pichai confirmed. "That's what makes this technology revolutionary. We've optimized the software to work with the sensors already in modern smartphones." The app finished its calibration with a gentle chime. Pichai turned the phone's camera toward Maya and tapped the screen a few times to adjust some settings. "For this demonstration, I'll need your permission to proceed. The app will analyze your emotional state in real time and will display the results on the studio monitor. Are you comfortable with that?" Maya hesitated for just a moment. This was certainly not how she had expected the interview to go. What if the technology actually worked? What if it revealed something she'd rather keep private? The backing down now would make for awkward television. "Go ahead," she said with a confident smile that masked her uncertainty. Pichai nodded to Jake, who signaled the technical director. Within seconds, the feed from Maya's phone appeared on the large studio monitor visible to both the in-studio audience and viewers at home. The screen showed Maya's face with a simple interface overlaid around it. "I'm going to ask you a few questions, and we'll see what the app detects," Pichai said. "First, could you tell me about your favorite vacation?" Maya described a trip to Japan she had taken last year, watching with curiosity as colored indicators appeared on the screen beside her face. The app displayed joy, 72%, with a yellow glow around certain facial features. Now, could you recall a work deadline that was particularly stressful? As Maya began describing a difficult story she had covered under tight time constraints, the indicators shifted. Anxiety, 54%, appeared with a light blue highlight around her eyes and forehead. That's just basic facial recognition. Maya challenged. Many apps can do that already. You're partially right, Pichai acknowledged. But watch this next part carefully. He tapped the screen again, enabling what he called contextual analysis. Then he asked, "What do you think about the future of journalism in the digital age?" Maya gave her standard answer about balancing technology with traditional reporting values, a response she had given in dozens of interviews before. But as she spoke, the app displayed something unexpected. Surface confidence, 88%, underlying concern, 63%. She stopped mid-sentence, genuinely surprised. The app had somehow detected her private worries about the journalism industry, concerns she rarely voiced publicly. How did it? Maya began, then caught herself. This could be programmed to show common responses to common questions. Pichai nodded, accepting her challenge. Let's try something more personal then. Think of a memory that makes you happy, but don't tell me what it is. Just think about it for a moment. Maya thought about her grandmother's kitchen and the smell of fresh bread on Sunday mornings, a cherished childhood memory she hadn't shared with anyone at the studio. The app displayed joy, 87%, nostalgia, 76%, familial connection, 91%. That's surprisingly accurate, Maya admitted reluctantly. The technology doesn't read minds, Pichai explained. It analyzes micro-expressions, pupil dilation, subtle changes in skin coloration, and dozens of other indicators that humans can't consciously control. Then it places these signals in context. For the first time in her career, Maya found herself at a loss for words on live television. The demonstration was far more convincing than she had anticipated. But the most surprising part was still to come. Pichai had one more demonstration planned, one that would remove any remaining doubt and completely change Maya's perspective on what technology could achieve. The studio audience sat in stunned silence. What had begun as a routine interview had transformed into something unprecedented. Maya shifted uncomfortably in her chair, trying to maintain her professional composure despite her growing amazement. "Let's take this one step further," Pichai said, his voice calm but with a hint of excitement. "I'd like to demonstrate the adaptive learning capabilities of the system." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device about the size of a guitar pick. It was thin, black, and had a subtle Google logo etched on one side. "What's that?" Maya asked, leaning forward curiously. "This is a Nexus link. It enhances the app's capabilities by adding additional processing power. May I?" He gestured toward her phone. Maya nodded, and Pichai attached the small device to the back of her phone. It adhered seamlessly, as if magnetized. Now the app can process not just visual data, but also analyze voice patterns and surrounding environmental cues simultaneously, he explained. The studio technicians quickly adjusted their equipment to ensure viewers at home could see both the demonstration and Maya's reactions. Jake, her producer, was frantically signaling to extend the segment beyond its planned time slot. This was television gold. "Can anyone in the audience volunteer for a quick demonstration?" Pichai asked. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. She introduced herself as Sarah, a graduate student studying computer science. "Perfect," Pichai said. "Sarah, please stand about 10 feet away from us, and think of a number between 1 and 1,000. Don't say it out loud, just think about it." Sarah nodded and took her position. Pichai aimed Maya's phone toward Sarah. Nexus isn't a mind-reading device, but it can analyze subtle physical responses. Watch. The studio monitor displayed a live feed from the phone. Around Sarah's image, numbers began to appear and disappear rapidly, as if the system was narrowing down possibilities. The app is analyzing micro-movements in her facial muscles, pupil dilation, and other unconscious reactions, Pichai explained. "When I say certain numbers, her body will react slightly differently to the correct one, even if she tries to hide it." After about 15 seconds, the app stopped on the number 372. "Is that your number?" Pichai asked Sarah. Her jaw dropped. Yes, how did you know? The audience gasped. Even Maya couldn't hide her astonishment. To be clear, Pichai said, this isn't magic or mind reading. It's advanced pattern recognition combined with an understanding of human physiological responses. Maya took back her phone, examining it carefully. This is remarkable, but I'm concerned about privacy implications. Couldn't this technology be used to extract information from people against their will? Pichai nodded seriously. That's an excellent question. We built multiple safeguards into the system. First, it requires explicit user consent. The person being analyzed must agree to the scan. Second, it doesn't work through photos or videos, only live interactions. And third, we've implemented strict ethical guidelines for its use. He turned to face the camera directly. We believe technology should help people, not exploit them. That's why Project Nexus will primarily be used for applications like improving communication for people with autism, helping detect early signs of cognitive decline in elderly patients, and enhancing natural interactions with digital assistants. Maya was processing everything she had just witnessed. This wasn't just an incremental improvement, it was a fundamental leap forward in how computers could understand human emotions. Could I try operating it myself? She asked. Of course, Pichai replied, showing her how to navigate the app's interface. As Maya began exploring the technology herself, the studio audience watched in fascination. She pointed the camera at different audience members, seeing the emotional analysis appear in real time. The technology wasn't perfect. It occasionally misread subtle emotions, but its accuracy was unlike anything she had ever seen. This is genuinely impressive, Maya admitted, still struggling to reconcile her initial skepticism with the evidence before her eyes. The woman who had laughed dismissively just minutes ago was now completely engrossed in exploring the very technology she had doubted. As Maya navigated through the Nexus app, exploring its various features, her expression shifted from skepticism to genuine fascination. The studio audience watched in rapt attention as this unexpected demonstration continued to unfold on live television. Let me show you one more capability, Pichai said, gently taking the phone back from Maya. This is something we've been developing for healthcare applications. He adjusted some settings on the screen and then turned to Maya. Would you mind if I demonstrate the health monitoring function? It's completely non-invasive. Maya hesitated for just a moment. What exactly will it show? Basic vital signs, heart rate, breathing patterns, estimated blood pressure, and stress indicators. Nothing too personal, Pichai assured her. All right, Maya agreed, her journalistic curiosity now fully engaged. Pichai pointed the camera at Maya and tapped a button labeled Health Scan. Within seconds, a series of measurements appeared on the studio monitor. Her heart rate, 78 bum, respiration rate, 16 breaths per minute, an estimated blood pressure, slightly elevated at 128/85. That's remarkably close to my last doctor's visit, Maya said, unable to hide her surprise. But how is this possible through just a smartphone camera? The camera detects subtle color changes in your skin that correspond to your pulse, Pichai explained. It measures the almost imperceptible movement of your chest for respiration, and it analyzes multiple factors to estimate blood pressure. We validated this against medical-grade equipment and found it to be accurate within acceptable margins for preliminary screening. The studio had fallen completely silent. Even the cameramen were watching the demonstration rather than focusing on their equipment. Mr. Pichai, Maya said, her voice now devoid of its earlier skepticism, when you first mentioned these capabilities, I admit I didn't believe you. I've interviewed dozens of tech executives making bold claims that never materialized. What makes this different? Pichai smiled gently. The difference is that we spent years perfecting this technology before announcing it. We wanted to be certain it worked in real-world conditions, not just in laboratory settings. He handed the phone back to Maya. Try pointing it at yourself. Maya switched the camera to selfie mode and watched as the app began analyzing her own expressions. The monitor displayed curiosity, 82%, professional interest, 91%, emotional shift, skepticism, engagement. This is extraordinary, she said quietly, almost forgetting she was on live television. The ethical implications are enormous. They absolutely are, Pichai agreed. That's why we're introducing this technology gradually, with strict guidelines for its use. We're also publishing our research methods so the scientific community can validate our approach. Jake, Maya's producer, stepped forward from behind the cameras. We need to take a commercial break. We'll continue this fascinating demonstration immediately afterward. As the red light on the main camera switched off, indicating they were no longer live, the studio erupted in excited conversation. Crew members who normally remain professionally detached during broadcasts were approaching Pichai with questions. Maya sat still in her chair, still processing what she had witnessed. In 15 years of technology reporting, she had never seen anything quite like this. The app had not only detected surface emotions but had accurately identified complex emotional states and even physical vital signs. "Are you okay?" Jake asked her during the break. "You look a bit shaken." "I'm fine," Maya replied, "just recalibrating my expectations. I came in ready to challenge what I thought were exaggerated claims, and instead..." She glanced over at Pichai, who was calmly answering questions from curious crew members. He caught her eye and gave a small, understanding nod. "2 minutes until we're back live," the floor director announced. Maya took a deep breath. The second half of this interview would be very different from what she had planned. She had entered the studio as a skeptic ready to challenge Pichai's claims. Now, she was eager to explore the implications of what might be one of the most significant technological breakthroughs she had ever witnessed. The red light on the camera illuminated once more, signaling they were back on air. The energy in the studio had completely transformed from the interview's beginning. Maya, now leaning forward in her chair, had abandoned her original line of questioning. "Welcome back to our special extended interview with Google CEO Sundar Pichai," she began. Before the break, Mr. Pichai demonstrated technology that, frankly, I didn't believe was possible until I saw it with my own eyes. She turned toward him. "I think I owe you an apology for laughing earlier." Pichai smiled warmly. "No apology needed. Skepticism is healthy, especially in technology journalism. Without people like you asking tough questions, companies like Google wouldn't be held accountable." Maya nodded, appreciating his gracious response. "Let's talk about responsibility. This technology can detect emotions people might prefer to keep private. How do you prevent misuse?" "That's the most important question," Pichai replied. "We built 3 layers of protection. First, explicit consent. The app won't analyze anyone without their permission. Second, all processing happens on the device, not in the cloud, so emotional data isn't stored on our servers. And third, we've established an external ethics board that includes privacy advocates who have veto power over applications." The studio audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. "Can I try an experiment?" Maya asked, surprising even herself with the request. "Of course," Pichai responded. "I'd like to test how well it works when someone is deliberately trying to hide their emotions," she said. "Let me try to fool the system." Pichai nodded and handed her phone back. "Go ahead." Maya took a deep breath and put on her most convincing smile, the one she used when interviewing difficult subjects. She focused on appearing completely calm and neutral while internally recalling a particularly upsetting story she had covered last year. The app displayed surface expression, neutral, 97%, underlying state, distress, 73%, emotional conflict detected. "That's unsettling," Maya admitted, dropping her facade. "It saw right through me." "This is why we take privacy so seriously," Pichai said. "The technology doesn't just see what's on the surface, it detects subtle signals most humans would miss." "What made you develop this in the first place?" Maya asked, genuinely curious now. "It started with a personal experience," Pichai revealed. "My mother has Parkinson's disease, which affects facial expressions. I watched her doctor misinterpret her emotional state because her face couldn't show what she was feeling. We wondered if technology could bridge that gap, help people whose emotional expressions don't match their internal experience." The studio fell silent at this unexpected personal revelation. "So this wasn't primarily developed for commercial applications?" Maya asked. "No, though we did identify commercial uses later. It began as a healthcare project. We're working with autism researchers, for example, to help those who struggle with reading social cues. and with elder care facilities to better understand the needs of patients who have difficulty communicating. Maya nodded slowly, her perspective continuing to shift. Earlier I laughed because I thought your claims were exaggerated marketing speak. I've heard so many promises about AI that turned out to be smoke and mirrors. That's fair, Pichai acknowledged. Our industry sometimes gets ahead of itself with promises. That's why we waited until we had something that truly worked before making any announcements. The tension that had filled the studio at the beginning of the interview had completely dissolved. In its place was something neither Maya nor the audience had expected, a thoughtful conversation about the human implications of cutting-edge technology. What do you hope this technology will ultimately achieve? Maya asked, having entirely abandoned her prepared questions. Pichai's eyes lit up. At its core, we want to build technology that enhances human connection rather than replacing it. If we can help people better understand each other's emotions, especially across different abilities, cultures, and communication styles, we might create more empathy in the world. That's the ultimate goal. Maya's interview with Sundar Pichai ended 20 minutes later than scheduled. As the studio lights dimmed and the cameras stopped rolling, the audience gave a spontaneous round of applause, something almost unheard of for a tech interview segment. Pichai smiled, nodded his thanks, and turned to shake Maya's hand. "Thank you for keeping an open mind," he said quietly. "Thank you for proving me wrong," she replied with newfound respect in her voice. As Pichai left the studio with his assistant, crew members rushed to Maya with excited comments. The control room was buzzing with activity as producers prepared clips for immediate distribution across social media platforms. "That was incredible television," Jake said, clasping her shoulder. "We're already trending on Twitter. #NexusTech and #MayAmeetsMatch are exploding." Maya checked her phone and was stunned by the flood of notifications. The studio's social media accounts were gaining thousands of followers by the minute. Her personal professional accounts were similarly overwhelmed with messages, comments, and requests for follow-up interviews. "The clips are going viral," a young production assistant announced, showing Maya a real-time analytics dashboard. "The moment you laughed and then his demonstration, over 2 million views already and climbing fast." Maya wasn't sure how to feel. On one hand, the interview had clearly resonated with viewers in a way few technology segments ever did. On the other hand, she had publicly doubted a legitimate technological breakthrough and been proven wrong on live television. By the time she reached her office an hour later, the interview had been picked up by major news outlets worldwide. Technology blogs were dissecting every aspect of the demonstration, with experts weighing in on the implications of Project Nexus. Most remarkably, Google's stock had jumped 8% in after-hours trading, a massive move for a company of its size. Maya's phone rang. It was her editor-in-chief. "I need you to write a first-person account of what happened today," he said without preamble. "This is beyond a regular interview. People want to know what it felt like to witness this technology firsthand." "I'm still processing it myself," Maya admitted. "That's perfect. Capture that feeling. The honest reaction of someone who's covered tech for 15 years and still got surprised. We're putting it on tomorrow's front page." As Maya began writing her account, her email inbox filled with messages from colleagues around the world. Some offered sympathy for her on-air moment of doubt, but most expressed amazement at the technology she had helped unveil to the public. A message from an unfamiliar address caught her attention. The subject line read, "An invitation from Boston Children's Hospital." Opening it, Maya learned that researchers there had been working with an early version of Project Nexus to help children with communication disorders. They invited her to visit and see the real-world applications of the technology. By midnight, the interview had been viewed over 15 million times across various platforms. Morning shows in different time zones were already scheduling segments to discuss the implications of the technology. Technology ethicists were publishing rapid response articles debating the privacy concerns and potential benefits. Maya finished her article around 2 a.m., having rewritten it several times to capture the mixture of emotions she had experienced, from dismissive skepticism to genuine amazement. As she finally prepared for bed, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from one of her most trusted sources at Google. "Project Nexus is just the beginning. What Pichai showed today is only 60% of what the full version can do. Stay tuned." Maya stared at the message for a long moment. If today's demonstration was only a fraction of the technology's capability, what might the complete version achieve? The reporter who had laughed at Sundar Pichai just hours ago now found herself eager to learn more about the technology she had initially dismissed. Sometimes being proven wrong, she realized, was the most valuable part of her job. 6 months after the now famous interview, Maya Chen stood on the stage of the annual Technology Impact Conference in San Francisco. The large auditorium was filled to capacity with over 2,000 attendees, technology leaders, journalists, researchers, and students all gathered for the premier tech event of the year. "It is my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker," Maya said into the microphone, her voice echoing through the hall. "A man whose work has fundamentally changed how we think about human-computer interaction." The audience fell silent in anticipation. On the massive screen behind Maya played a brief clip. The moment from 6 months ago when she had laughed at Sundar Pichai's claims about Project Nexus. She had specifically requested this clip be included, despite her team's concerns about reminding people of her skepticism. "That laugh you just heard changed my career," Maya continued with a smile. "For 15 years, I prided myself on asking tough questions and being appropriately skeptical of grand technological promises. But that day taught me an important lesson about the difference between healthy skepticism and closed-mindedness." The audience listened intently as Maya shared how the interview had affected her approach to reporting. Since that day, Project Nexus has been approved by the FDA for use in medical settings. It's helping doctors better understand nonverbal patients. It's assisting children with autism in recognizing emotional cues. And it's giving voice to people who previously couldn't express their feelings clearly. Maya paused, looking across the sea of faces. "But beyond the technology itself, that interview changed how I approach innovation. I've learned that the most important breakthroughs often sound impossible until they're suddenly real." Please join me in welcoming the man who taught me that lesson, the CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai. The audience erupted in applause as Pichai walked onto the stage. The two shook hands warmly before Maya stepped aside to let him take the podium. After his keynote speech about responsible innovation, Maya joined Pichai for a fireside chat. The dynamic between them was notably different from their first encounter: respectful, warm, and genuinely collaborative. "You could have made me look foolish that day," Maya said during their conversation, "but instead, you turned it into a teaching moment." "Why?" Pichai smiled. "Technology isn't about proving people wrong. It's about showing what's possible. Your skepticism was reasonable based on what you knew at the time." "What surprised you most about the public response to Project Nexus?" Maya asked. "Honestly, how quickly people found applications we hadn't considered," Pichai replied. "A group in Japan is using it to help elderly people with dementia communicate their needs. Wildlife researchers adapted it to study emotional states in primates. The most powerful technology becomes a platform that others build upon." As their conversation concluded, Maya reflected on how this single interview had transformed her perspective. The technological breakthrough was significant, but the human lesson had been equally valuable. She had learned that true expertise includes the humility to admit when you're wrong and the curiosity to explore what initially seems impossible. After the conference, Maya met with a group of journalism students who had requested time with her. One young woman asked, "Weren't you embarrassed when your laugh went viral?" Maya smiled. "Initially, yes, but being publicly wrong taught me more than being right ever did. The best journalists aren't those who never make mistakes, they're those who learn from them." As Maya left the conference center that evening, she passed a hospital where Project Nexus was being used to help patients who couldn't communicate verbally. What had begun with a skeptical laugh had evolved into technology that was genuinely improving lives. Her phone buzzed with a message from Pichai. "Next month we're unveiling something new. Would you like the first interview? Promise not to laugh this time?" Maya smiled as she typed her reply. "I'll bring my best skeptical questions and an open mind."